to go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending. This is a meeting of the Human Resources and Human Rights Committee. Present, we have myself, Jamel Robinson, who is the chair of this committee. We have committee members joining us, Councilman Richard Conti, Council member, is Jack here? No.
It's not going to be
okay.
here.
Council member Jenny Farrell, and also Johnson and Flynn are not here, but we do have enough to have a quorum, correct?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. And also joining us, we have the sponsor, Councilman Owusu Anani. Also joining us, council members Alfredo Bolarin, Tom Hoey, and also Councilwoman Judy Doche. Okay, so Councilman Anani, I'll turn the floor over to you, let you give an overview of the proposed resolution.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. In our state, there have been over 300,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases. 19,000 of those confirmed, 19,000 are confirmed deaths as of June of 2020, which is roughly 1/3 of the confirmed coronavirus cases in the United States. As a result of this unprecedented scale of devastation this virus caused, an urgent plea for blood donations was made. And it's well documented that gay men and transgender men are desperately want to give blood to their respective communities. Currently, Food and Drug Administration already had 12-month deferment on blood donation from gay men from the time that they have sex with another gay man. And because of COVID-19, it was reduced from 12 months to 3 months. I feel like this policy is discriminatory in nature, and by it's focusing on the gender of the individual rather than focusing on science. On a personal note, I know what it's like to be discriminated against as someone who lived in Brooklyn with the era of stop and frisk. So when I see discrimination happen to any community, I feel that I'm being also impacted. And that's why I felt it was important that we send a clear message to the federal government and also to the President of the United States that this type of discrimination will not be tolerated. Particularly in these times that we're in, there are people who are looking at local government for assistance and a sense of hope and a sense of someone who's watching their back and someone who have their back. And that's what this resolution is intended to do, to make sure that people feel that this city council is looking out for them and we're looking to dismantle any form of discrimination. So that's the reason why I introduced this resolution. Frederick Douglass once said, power concedes to nothing without a demand, and that is why we're demanding that the federal government get rid of this discriminatory policy. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I also want to note our staff members who are present. We have JR, Danielle, and also Michelle present with us. Okay, so I know that there are some committee members and also council members who did have questions regarding the resolution. So I'm going to turn the floor over to them for their questions that they have. Councilmember Conti, if you want to. Did you have questions on?
No, I mean, we passed a resolution on this topic back in 2016 in response to the Pulse nightclub shooting. There have been some changes in the policy since then, including a change in the deferral provisions. And there's also a change in terms of how the transgender community is treated, which back in the prior policy, the sex was based on the sex of the individual at birth. The new policy provides that it's based on the self-identification of the individual, which does change some of the language. And I think one of the issues that have been raised has been about the inclusion of whether it is explicitly discriminatory towards transgender men or not. I note that the congressional resolution that the sponsor cites does not include transgender men. And you could argue that since they are a transgender male is treated as a male and is a male, I mean, God, that the issue here is really comes down to discrimination against men who have sex with men, which are gay or bisexual men. And so I don't know if there's some of the wording or if it might be better to look more closely at the congressional resolution or not, but the policy, I have no problem, obviously, with the policy that the resolution seeks to address, especially since I, did co-sponsor the one in 2016, and arguably I'm the only member of the council that would be affected by the current policy. I think.
And you could co-sponsor this one too, Richard.
I assume with the Pulse nightclub shooting back in 2016, Judd carried this resolution. I carry the other resolution that we did that same meeting that expressed our sympathy and condolences to the victims. So we worked together on that.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. And so, Richard, what specifically in the resolution from the House do you feel should be included in the resolution? What language?
Oh, I just think that the House resolution is a little bit cleaner if you want to look at a model.
And John Raphael, if I may enter, is it okay to model the House congressional resolution?
It's not copyrighted.
Sure.
There's no problem with it. I'm pulling it up right now so everybody on the screen can see it.
I mean, in both cases, what we want to do, the policy, it should be based on risk factors. And if you look at the current FDA policy, which I don't know if I have that here, they do look at whether or not the individual has ever tested positive for HIV, whether they've defer for 3 months, the most recent event, an individual who has exchanged sex for money or drugs, an individual who is engaged in non-prescription injection drug use. So it's all, in other words, currently the deferral policy is based on risk factors. And then it says the last one is defer for 3 months from the most recent sexual contact, a man who has had sex with another man during the past 3 months. So it's a blanket presumption that that activity is risky as opposed to what was the activity itself. And that's where the discriminatory aspect of the policy comes into play, as opposed to looking at individual risk factors. Okay. And plus the science does allow us more to test blood nowadays as well.
Right.
Judy?
Okay, so I'm going to open it for any other committee members have a weigh-in on the resolution.
Yes, I'm glad to talk a little bit about this. I mean, so seeing the transgender in this and seeing that other entities have not included that specific terminology in their resolutions, so I looked into it a little bit further, and I do see that the American Red Cross specifically says that there is no deferral associated with being transgender, and eligibility will be based on the criteria associated with the gender the donor has reported. And then it refers you to additional eligibility criteria. So that makes it a bit confusing for me, and I am a little bit concerned that that this language in here gives people the impression that all transgender men are automatically deferred, while it is my understanding that not all transgender men are having sex with men, which is the criteria that is in the current federal policy. So
this is one of the points that when I was researching that I found interesting. It's right here where it says I'm a trans man and I've been eligible to donate, but because my assigned sex at birth was female, however, I had sex with another man, and this is where it goes that you're under the deferral policy, and then when it goes to a trans woman, but I was assigned a sex at male, but I had sex with a man, then there is no deferral. That's where I'm myself personally, I get confused. I understand that as a trans man, you are a man. And it's just when you put these two questionnaires up and you read it that way, I understand it. I get a little confused because when you go to the top and you go to transgender donor, it goes sweeping right here saying there is no deferral.
Yeah, and that policy, by the way, is a flip of where it was when we did this in 2016. Because in 2016, the policy was discriminated against trans women because the sex that was considered was the sex at birth, so considered a male versus a trans woman being identified as a woman based on her gender identity. So now they flipped it so that there's a reverse to it from where we were in 2016, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed when I was going through the Wayback Machine is I thought I had saw something different in that portion. As I went to the Wayback Machine and saw this particular website, seeing where it has been edited. And in April 1st, when the policy was announced by the FDA, you see substantially this portion of the website has been edited many times, even up until May 27th of last month. So there's been a lot of changes since then, even when I was researching. So
Jack, I was saying like this type of legislation is kind of fluid. Change, even if we pass the resolution, the aspects of it can change pretty quickly. Okay.
So the congressional resolution avoids a certain amount of that by laying out certain criteria as to what they do want the criteria to be based upon, including based upon the science. One of the things that gave me hesitancy also in rereading this particular resolution, first let me just explain, and maybe Richard, maybe you know something about this because you were so involved in the health field too. It was my understanding.
Richard.
Well, no.
He is, because of
no, he's commenting on my
Richard's facial expression. That's why. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So
commenting on you. Go ahead.
So for a long time, and I thought it's still the policy, all donors are being tested for HIV, or all blood is being tested for a variety of things, and then it's quarantined for a certain period of time. So now this resolution is advocating that, it looks like it's advocating, at least by the language, that we do want there to be a policy. We want the FDA to adopt a policy that essentially focuses on the unacceptable degree of risk, that is receptive anal sex without a condom, as a basis for deferral. And so this gets, talk about fluid, this gets a little bit, I think, dicey in terms of is that the position that we really want to be taken? I'm not really sure that I'm convinced that that's a reason. Having done some additional reading in the background, it appears that this deferral policy based upon somebody's sexual orientation or men having sex with men has something to do with the fact that sometimes blood banks make an error and release donations before there has been the testing and look back period. So I'm a little confused. These issues don't arise in the whole way that the congressional resolution has been laid out, at least not, that I am seeing, because while they say you want to look at risk activities, they don't identify a particular activity that then is a basis for a deferral. And I have to, there's so many potentially risky activities out there that I'm a little uncomfortable selecting one and saying, okay, well, that's the official position that we now want to take. We want to identify this particular activity as opposed to some of the other activities that might be risky. So I think what the federal, just so I don't know if anybody else printed out the federal resolution that Owusu referred to, but it says that the policies governing blood and blood product donation in the United States should be grounded in science, minimize deferral periods, be based upon individual risk factors, not unfairly single out any group of individuals, and allow donations by all those who can safely do so. That seems to me to be like, how do you argue with that? But my, and my struggle with using transgender, JR brought up something on the website that I had not seen, and I was having a hard time to digest to that in the little time that it was appearing. I feel like we're getting into, we're not necessarily adding or lessening the confusion regarding this. And I don't like the idea that a transgender man then may think that the current policy is he can't donate, period. So those are some of my concerns about it. I agree with Richard. I'd be more comfortable with using the language in the federal resolution, or maybe just simply supporting the federal resolution as a more simple way of doing that. So those are just.
Carol has her hand up.
I guess my stand, whatever, I think what it boils down to, in my view, is we're all on the same page that everybody thinks that this is a pretty terrible standpoint for the FDA to have. I think we're all in agreement with that. And I also think that we're all, we all understand that while resolutions are certainly important, it is kind of just us communicating to our constituents what we believe in. I highly doubt there is anyone, I'm sorry, Owusu, but I don't think there's anyone in the FDA that's like waiting, like, what does Albany think? We're gonna get this in. And I also don't think that anybody's gonna look up our resolutions before they give blood to see if they are going to, like, if they can or can't give blood. So I appreciate, and whatever, my stance is whatever the resolution makes people feel best is fantastic. But I also think this is more about a statement. And with that, I think that that's kind of where we are with it, is that everybody's on the same page. We all agree with this, and it's really not okay. And that to me is the bottom line with this. I don't think that it says, like, I think I didn't take that there was any specifics in what happens in your bedroom there, because there's a lot of things that a lot of different people can do, that it shifts to that. But I think it's more about, if you are, it's just wrong, and that's the bottom line. So whatever people feel good about in terms of resolution is fine, but I also think that we're all on the same page with this, and perhaps the statement is the most important thing.
Thank you, Councilman Farrell. Judy, I heard two things that you mentioned. One of them was to amend the resolution to include some of the language that is in the House proposal, and the other was to amend the resolution supporting the House proposal, right?
Well, I think I was kind of proposing an alternative. Simply supporting the House resolution makes it a little bit cleaner and easier.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Councilman Nani, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Jenny said. At the end of the day, we're all on the same page. We agree that this policy is discriminatory in nature. And in these challenging times, we will not stand for discrimination towards any demographic. So if it makes my colleague comfortable, I am okay with writing a resolution similar to the federal government, supporting the federal government actions, federal Congress members' actions. And as long as John Raphael can get it on the agenda for the next meeting for a vote, I'm all for it.
Do you want, so you want it to state specifically to support the House resolution, or do you want it to mimic the House resolution?
Mimic the House resolution.
Okay, so you want it to mimic the House resolution. I can amend that. That's easy enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like this.
That's a cut and paste.
Yeah, I would. I think I would prefer a resolution that does in some way kind of mirrors the House resolution. If you want, within that resolution, you can also cite the House bill number, but something that
989. Okay.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Just John Raphael, who's the sponsors on the federal level? Sorry about that.
Mr. Schiffer himself, along with Carolyn Maloney of New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Mr. Pappas, Mr. Quigley, Miss Lee of California, which I believe is Barbara Lee, Miss Howland, Miss Clark of Massachusetts.
I'm sure you don't have any objection to those sponsors.
No, I know I don't actually, but I think it's important if we could send them a copy, particularly the wonderful congressman from Queens.
Okay, but remember, we're trying to keep our postal budget down.
Oh, about that.
Yes.
I guess we can email it.
I bet Wusu would happily mail it to her personally.
Sure.
Include a picture of him with the puppy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe he'll get a little spot on CNN with Chris Cuomo.
Would you like to hear comment?
Say again, Michelle?
Would you like to hear the public comment for the record? Danielle, can you read that? If that's.
I do have it up, and I'm prepared to read it. If
okay, just in a moment, I want to get.
Thank you, sir.
Weigh in on that, weigh in on the conversation, see if they have anything to add. Councilmember Beleren, Hoey, do you have anything to add to the discussion? Or?
I think it's a very good idea what you're going to do. I'm supportive, and I like to see the committee work together. It was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I mean, I came on to this just to make sure we can smooth out whatever issues we had, to see if I could help smooth out. But I'm glad that it was able to get smoothed out, and we move forward.
Okay. And Councilmember Kimbrough joined us. Kelly, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
We have no questions from this. No, I have. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have nothing at this time. Thanks.
So I guess we can come down to, okay, let's go to public comment.
Okay, Chair, I'm so sorry. This comment is submitted by Alana Klein, and it reads as follows. I would like to express my gratitude. Well, it says, Mr. President, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I would first like to express my gratitude to Councilmember Anani for not only drafting this resolution and being a consistent ally to the LGBTQ+ community, but in reaching out to me at my request. To explain it succinctly, I would like to change the way the third whereas to whereas it is well documented that LGBTQ plus people desperately want to give blood to the community. And in my opinion, this would better reflect the desire of the LGBTQ plus community as a whole. I have no edits to the fourth whereas because I am not sure of the technical wording of the current policy. On June 12, 2016, 49 people were killed and 53 more were wounded in a mass shooting at the gay nightclub Pulse in Orlando, Florida. Countless members of the LGBTQ plus community lined up to donate blood, only to be blocked by a draconian rule that dates back to the 80s era, fear-mongering of the gay community. This is, to put it lightly, tragically ironic. I have attached the link to an article referencing this policy. Any difference in policy based on sexual orientation and/or actual or perceived gender identity or expression is unacceptable. While the FDA may think that this change in policy, a reduction from 12 months to 3, is progress, it is not. Sexual orientation, preference, gender identity, and gender expression do not equate promiscuity or risk. Knowing the history of this council, I fully expect this to have unanimous support both here and in front of the full body. I will be giving comments on a different topic for Monday's meeting, but I invite any of you to reference the aforementioned article in your comments before the vote. Thank you. And she references a website that we can all visit. This website has been provided to all council members, but for the record, I will read it. It is www.cnn.com/2016/12/opinions/pulse Orlando-shooting-men-blood-donor-ban-quigley/index.html. And Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I can show the website on my screen for the general public that is streaming live.
Yes,
on Facebook.
Just for the record, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so since we are going to be mimicking the House resolution, JR, do we need to, what do we need to do with this particular resolution? Do we need to amend this resolution, or do we need to create a separate resolution?
You're muted.
I am amending it as we speak right now. I'm just finalizing some formats. I will present it to the members, and then it would just require a motion for approval as amended, as if the sponsor is okay with the amendments that I just placed in it. So I'm just finalizing it right now.
Okay. So I guess we're waiting for JR to finish that amending that resolution. Is there any other discussion on the topic at hand? Or?
No.
Well, Owusu, you can show us your dog. Pick up the puppy.
Yeah, Duke, come here.
Oh, he listened to you already? Jeez.
Wishful thinking is like, yeah.
At least somebody listened to you, right?
You know?
My dog is 3 and doesn't listen to me. But none of my kids do either, so.
He's probably got Scooby snacks in his pocket.
Yeah.
As someone who had my 16-month-old granddaughter here, I laughed out loud at that comment.
All right. This is Duke.
Oh.
He is adorable.
Say hi, Judy.
So cute. What kind of dog is he?
It is a mutt boxer and a golden retriever mix.
Ooh.
Yeah, they don't know who the dad is, so.
It's cute.
But I'm hearing her to be.
He's gonna get sizable.
90 pounds.
Just a gentle reminder, we're still streaming on Facebook Live.
I think everybody loves puppies. And babies too. Like Judy, you should show like
That's
we've
my
got
little
different people with babies. Aw. I know, Alfredo, Jamal, you could like
Everybody show your dogs.
Yeah, we should have a show you dog day.
yeah. We would probably get a lot more views.
Actually, we will stay tuned. Stay tuned for that resolution here in the city of Albany, proclaiming something day. Stay tuned.
Eat dog day.
Dog day.
Have the resolution. Up. I'm gonna bring it up right now. There it is.
So the statue is coming down.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
So literally pulled the language. I amended the resolution to say a resolution of the Common Council supporting House Resolution 989 governing blood and blood product donations. Pulled literally the language as is. Some formatting that will be finalized for you all. I'm going a little fast because it is. I just want to show where the differences are. So then now therefore be it resolved, the City of Albany Common Council supports House Resolution 989 and that policies governing blood and blood product donations in the United States should, one, be grounded in science, minimize deferral periods, and be based on individual risk factors. For, not unfairly single out any group or individual, and allow donations by all those who can safely do so. I will be adding the Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez in this as well, but maintaining who we previously had already there.
Could you, in the title of the resolution, add some language that references what we're actually talking about as far as a change in the FDA policy?
So would you, the 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5 here?
Just in the title, going up further. The
No.
a resolution of the Common Council supporting House Resolution. Let's see. Maybe calling on the Food and Drug Administration to revise, whatever, but there's some language in there that gives it a sense of what we're talking about. The resolution is about the FDA blood donation policy and deferral. I don't have to see it right now, but just to,
And if I may add, just as relates to the title, instead of calling, if we could put demand and then down there it says minimal, can we get rid of that by any chance?
Get rid of what?
So get rid of minimize deferral periods?
Minimal deferment?
So just no deferral periods?
Yeah, period, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then going back up to the title, on the United States Food and Drug Administration, if they consider a blood donation deferral. So, how about we go more and just change and demand the FDA to change their policies a little more, or
something like that as it relates to whatever. Just, I mean, I don't have, you can play with it, but just give it a little bit more descriptive as to what the resolution actually says.
Right there? It's a little wordy, but.
Blood product donation.
Change their discriminatory policies.
That's good.
Okay.
Councilman Anani, are you okay with all the changes?
Yes, and I want to thank my colleagues for all the amendments. Teamwork make the dream work, and I think this is going to make an impact. I think the president and also the FDA chair will be looking forward to this resolution and hopefully make the appropriate changes.
The president?
Councilmember Hoey.
I was just wondering if we could do one more thing, if possible. could we make it change all their discriminatory policies? Or is that just too broad?
I would like to
I don't think that that's anything.
Say it again, Councilwoman. Just say.
He's saying to change it to like this. Change all their discriminatory policy as it relates to blood and blood product.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
Tom, you're on mute. Can't hear you.
There might be policies that we don't know about that, you know, unless we've read through their, I don't know if anybody's read through the whole manual of what their policies are.
But it then says,
I'm okay with your amendment. Sorry.
Okay, I'll shut up.
I mean, whatever is fine, but it's specific about as it relates to blood and blood product donation. So
Yeah.
I don't know that we need the all in that situation.
Yeah, and they probably don't know what is discriminatory or not. So, hence why this is still here. That's why we're here.
So put the all, not the all.
I would say we can eliminate the all.
Okay. Okay.
Resolution at hand. So, Councilman Anani, are you pleased with the amendments?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay. So, can I have a motion to pass resolution number 48.61-20R out of committee with a favorable recommendation?
So moved.
And I will second it.
All right, it has been moved in second that resolution 48.61-20R is passed out of committee with a favorable recommendation. Okay.
Thank you everyone for all the work on it.
Was there a vote?
Oh,
yeah.
All members.
Vote.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can we have all members who are in favor about passing this recommendation, this resolution out of committee with a favorable recommendation? Recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and the ayes have it, so moved. So there, it is passed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So thank you all. And
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank
Second.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Stay safe, everybody.